listening to SuperPower Mommas on the SuperPower Up podcast, the show that embraces the art of soulful parenting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Laura Greco, your host, and you're listening to SuperPower Mommas. And today we are speaking on a topic of great interest because it concerns how we live our lives. The topic is self-improvement tips to a healthy family. So I'm sure everyone would be interested in this, and especially because I have this wonderful guest. Her name is Judy Feldhausen, and she has always in her life had a heart for people. Her corporate employment ranges from electronics to cosmetics, but it doesn't really matter what she's doing because she believes in donating her time as an important part of her life and is chair on the National Resource Conservatory Commission and the Lieutenant Governor of, I don't know how to say that, Judy.
Kiwanis.
What is that?
So Kiwanis is a national organization that helps children, no matter where they are, with their social presence and with their health presence.
Wow. Her highest honors are being named Illinois Women of Achievement, listed in the Cambridge Who's Who, and named her community's Business Person of the Year. Because of her own family history of cardiovascular disease, she found the Cardio Wellness Group, whose mission is to eliminate heart disease using screening and nitric oxide therapy protocol so that the families stay healthy and connected. So welcome, Judy. I'm so excited to have you here on the show.
Well, thank you, Laura. I am absolutely honored to be your guest today.
Well, we're going to have a wonderful conversation, especially when we think about the topic that we're talking about, which is self-improvement tips to a healthy family. So, to begin with, you are a mama of 2 children, and you just told me you have 4 grandchildren.
I do. I love them so dearly.
Yeah. And so you can, especially, you haven't shared your story yet, and I'm going to ask you in a minute about that. But, this topic is something very dear to your heart, as you mentioned here, and I'm excited to have you here to talk about that. But to begin with, let's ask you this. We always ask this. What is your mama superpower?
Well, my mama's superpower actually started when my children were young, and I think we develop our superpowers throughout our life. Mm-hmm. But mine specifically became self-health, not self-help, but self-health, especially around the heart and the gut. So when I was a child, I was actually living in New Jersey, and I know, Laura, that's where you are now.
Yes, I am.
I was living in New Jersey. My dad was in the Air Force, and I was 6. My sister was 6 weeks old, and my dad had a major heart attack. In fact, he had a fatal heart attack. And so I grew up. I left the state, and my mom moved back to her mom because family is so important. So I grew up without a dad, and I really didn't think about it until I had children. And when I had children, I thought, oh my gosh, my dad was so young when he passed. What if I pass when I'm young? What if I have the same things that he had? And so I started looking for ways to find out, number one, do I have that genetic predisposition that he had? And number two, in any case, how do I become as healthy as I can so that I can be there for my children, so that I can pass on the things that are important to me, my legacies to my children, in a wonderful way, because I have the energy and the health and the mental clarity to do that. So that's how I actually started my journey, and have become so passionate about health for myself, my family, and my community.
Beautiful. So you took what was a challenge for you and turned it into something actually bigger than you. Started with you and your family, but created something really, really amazing for others as well, right?
Absolutely. And I look to help people every single day. And when I'm out, I get information about people and how they are living their healthiest life and what they are doing, because I don't have all the answers. I'm on a journey myself, and I want to learn what other people are doing, how they're keeping their health where they need to, and if I can share anything that I know with them, I am so blessed to do that.
Yeah, and I think you've really touched somewhat on, but maybe you want to expand on how this superpower of yours has really assisted you as your children were growing up, and by extension, your grandchildren.
Absolutely. So I found that as my children were growing up, that I focused so much on them that I didn't have the energy. And to tell you the truth, when my daughter was about 4 years old, I was following the plot of Sesame Street. Now, before my daughter was born, I didn't know that Sesame Street had a plot. But yeah, and just like, oh, Maria is getting married. Oh my gosh. It's like, oh, what have I done? I felt that for every year she was born, that I was actually losing 10 IQ points. And by the time she was 5, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. I don't have the energy. She's my focus. My son was in school. I became a den mother for Boy Scouts. And I was in such a place that I didn't have the energy. And so I wanted to have more energy. I wanted to have better mental clarity, not just for me, but so that I could help them. And as they grew, their homework became harder and harder for me.
Yes.
Not just for them.
Right.
And I needed the energy to play with them after school, to play ball and volleyball and run after them in the yard. And so having my health became so important to me, and being able to find a way to do all of it on a daily basis just became a focus to take care of me so I could take care of them.
Wow. And Judy, I just applaud you because your awareness kicked in. Because it's true, when we become moms, of course, when they're really little babies, we spend a lot of time, taking care of them and making sure, especially our first one, right? But then it can become consuming, and to the point where we're losing who we are. And as you mentioned, even the energy to keep up as a parent. So I love that you highlighted that point, and that you created that awareness for yourself, and then you began to expand your superpower really into assisting yourself, and by extension others, including the example that you've set for your children. Beautiful. We are at a point where we're going to take a break, and I know I already explored your website, and you have some great videos. By the way, you have Neva, there I see, Neva Reckless. So I invite everyone to go and visit where Judy's website is. So tell everybody where they can find you.
So my website is cardiowellnessgroup.com.
Yeah. So we're going to take our break. Thank you for joining us. We are talking on the topic of self-improvement tips to a healthy family with Judy Feldhausen. Sorry. So please come back and wait for us, because actually we're going to extend this further into the idea of how the heart health and how we parent really matters and how they're connected.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Don Rekla, Executive Director of SuperPower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making SuperPower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Greco, and you're listening to SuperPower Mommas, and we are speaking with Judy Feldhausen on the topic of self-improvement tips to a healthy family. So, Judy, before we went, you shared your beautiful story of being a parent that was overlooking her own health and realized or became aware of the fact that you needed to shift that. So, going forward, what is... I want to explore more what I've been learning more about myself, and that is the brain, the 3 brains of our body, and how that really affects, we think about what comes first, our heart health or our daily life, and it affects our heart. Like what's the connection there? Would love to hear more about that.
Well, thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
So when you think of a woman who is pregnant, what is the first thing that happens? There's a heartbeat. That happens within days of new life. And that heart starts beating, and it starts dividing and creating the body. The next thing that happens is the brainstem is formed, and the brain is formed. So there is a direct connection between our heart health and our brain. And when you think of it, when you think of how you think, not what you think, but how you think, there's so many times that you will think a certain thing and you automatically place your hand over your heart, because they are talking to one another. Those synapses are talking to each other constantly. And in addition to that, there is a heart and gut connection, and a brain and gut connection. They call the gut the second brain. And that connection, actually, there are more cells in the gut that respond to brain waves than actually in the brain. So we need to also have a healthy gut, so that connection is clear and concise, and our gut health is also in a place where it can be interpreting what our brain is saying and working with the health of our body.
So we had this discussion before, like what came first, the chicken or the egg. What you're saying is the heart really did come first. And so let's expand a little bit more on this, because this connection is really powerful. And we have heard about, like our gut health affects our immune system. We've heard, how we talk to ourselves and about ourselves makes a difference. But this goes beyond just how we feel about ourselves, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's how we react to things, how we function in our daily life. And if when someone has poor health, it affects more than their health. It affects the family. It affects the way that they approach life. It can cause depression. I've seen it so often that when someone is sick for a long period of time, they tend to give up. Recently, I I had the wonderful pleasure of ice skating with my grandchildren in Denver, Colorado. We had such a wonderful time. The last time around the skating rink, I was holding my granddaughter's hand, and she started to fall. And being a mom and a grandmother, of course, what did I do? I stopped her from falling. Unfortunately, I lost my balance and consequently fell down, broke my arm in 3 places.
Oh, gee whiz.
And so this was, I was in Colorado at the time on vacation. So I ended up having surgery and a plate, 9 screws put into my arm. And when I had my checkup after the surgery, the doctor told me, you will not regain the full use of your arm because of the way the break is, because of all these, your age and blah, 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 this is going to happen. And I believe in having a positive attitude. And I told him that within a year, I would be taking lessons on how to lasso. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, right, you know.
That's great.
So that was in January. And I really believe that the connection between my heart and my brain and my gut feelings, my intuition had me heal so much faster. I, of course, used natural supplements and other things to help my body physically heal faster. But I really believe that my attitude helped me heal much faster than he expected. I had my 9-month checkup last week, and he looked at me and he said, okay, you have healed faster. You are much stronger, and you have a complete range of motion. He said, I concede you were right. And I was wrong. And so the day after that, I actually went to a pumpkin farm, and there was some lassos. So I took some pictures of myself actually with the lassos, so I could prove to him that I was able to rope a cow after 9 months, where he believed that it would never ever happen.
Isn't that something? And we hear about this from time to time, sometimes very powerfully, like Dr. Dispenza, right? Who has gone on to do much work in this area, but you know, the accident he had and how he was able to heal himself through belief in his body and his intuition. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Judy.
Oh, you're welcome. And so I want to help other people get to where I got to. I have a personal goal to touch 1 million hearts. And to be able to do that, you know, I need to share my message, spread the word, and have others help me in doing that. Because attitude, the connection between the heart and the brain, the health of the gut is all connected with each other. And if we don't spread that word, nobody will be able to have the ability to grow along and touch others' hearts also.
Yeah. And there's just something intuitively, like before we understand the complete science of it, there's something that rings true vibrationally when we listen to this kind of information. You know, those 3 connections. We think about the heart being that seed of motivation. It's soulful. It's it's aligned with purpose or not, depending on where we are, and but the gut, the intuition, and how that affects our immune system and our ability to function in that capacity. And the brain, of course, we've always focused on the brain, maybe a little bit too much, huh?
Maybe a little bit too much. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I love that you're making this connection with folks. Especially, as our listeners are moms, they're generally very absorbed in their families and so forth. And you touched on this before the break, but let's just touch back on this, because I like to ask about, a mom's ability to care for herself and maintaining her autonomy. How important do you see that as a parent is parenting their child?
Well, it's so important. As I mentioned before, I kind of lost myself a little bit when I had my children. And, as dedicated mothers, I think we all do for a while. And the blessing is that we don't have to make it our entire focus, that we need to be separate from our children, because that strength lies within us. And if we give it away, it's gone. We have to continue to refocus, to create our own identity, to have our own energy, our own mental clarity, and to listen to other people and what they are doing, how they're coping, so that we can agree or disagree, but have our own opinion of what is going on in our lives, because our life as an individual is not like anyone else's. Our families are different, our backgrounds are different, our health is different. And so we need to be able to take responsibility and have a internal and external focus of what is right for ourselves, so that we can make it right for our families.
Love that. Love that so much. Because yes, not only is that ring true, but I love that your point is to discern for ourselves. We can take in information and not necessarily decide it's the right information for us. However, taking it in allows us to digest it, right? Not abundantly, in steps, of course. But you bring up a point that I think is also valid and worth mentioning, and that is we can decide for ourselves. But what I have noticed, and I think a lot of moms I've spoken to have noticed, that there tends to be a judgment factor. Well, I'm doing it right, you're not, kind of idea that seems to surface when information is out there. How would you address something like that with this topic?
Yeah, that's a great point. I was lucky enough to become a licensed coach. I have 3 different licenses in coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I learned throughout the process is to take the information and to let judgment go. And I have to actually physically, mentally, and emotionally do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think as women, we become so judgmental so quickly, and we can live in that judgment. I have a neighbor who's going through a divorce, and another neighbor that is so judgmental about her and her decisions. And we can all get into that, but I step back and look at what she has gone through, and none of us are perfect, but she has her own cross to bear, and she's doing the best she can. Whether I approve or don't approve, whether the neighbor approves or doesn't approve, it's not up to me, because it is her life. So to be able to stand in that, to step back and to let it go and to be there in support of her is so important for us to do with each other as women, especially in today's world, in today's economy, and what is happening politically and in business. We need to be able to look at it and to make independent decisions, and to do that with grace and harmony with everything.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, grace and harmony. And I would like to venture into this point, because I know people who, for example, are not someone I really love very much. She's not ever had an interest in really maintaining her health. She goes for the medical part of things, but not, the other things she can do. And that for a long time was like very frustrating to me. And yet I have now decided that it's really not up to me. This is her life, and she gets to live it the way she wants to, And I think about the anguish that we can have when we're thinking someone should, quote unquote, should be living a way that we feel would be better for them. How does that affect us when we get into that judgment? How does that affect our brain, our heart, our, that kind of thing?
Well, it does. It affects every part of our body, especially our heart, especially when you love someone like you love your friend and you want the best for them. And that is such a tough place to be, because in your heart, you think you know what's best for them. And, we have to also look at our gut, at our intuition, and look at the bigger picture. There's 3 ways to listen. First is listening to our gut. The next is listening to outside forces. And the third is listening globally. And so to be able to listen with all 3 ears, I say, to listen with all 3 ears, it makes such a difference, because it's what's best for me, what's best for you, and what's best for the world. And making those notices to actually be able to think that way helps take some of the frustration away, because it is an individual choice. It's not our choice, and sometimes it's not your choice. Sometimes it's the world's choice. You have to look at that too.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And I love to contemplate these kinds of topics, because these are the everyday things that we may not even think about that we're experiencing in our life. I know growing up, in the kind of conditions I did, I thought as a parent, if I do it differently and just do it perfectly, that things are going to be, so much better. And I discovered that perfect wasn't what the answer was. Right. It was really more about being engaged, being at heart, being curious, and being willing to not have attachment to everything, but to flow and accept that some things, go the way they go, but then we go on and either resolve it, apologize, or, change what we're doing.
Absolutely. And as really young parents, we have that perfection in what it should be in our minds. But Laura, you're the mother of 4, right?
Yes.
So your first child, you probably did not parent the way you parented your 4th child.
Right.
Because our superpowers really do develop, and if we take the time to listen, if we take time to engage and connect with our children and other people, it's going to change us. But if we do it correctly, it's going to change us for the better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you bring that out. What an amazing journey, right?
Yeah.
Being a parent and a grandparent.
It is.
And so it has all, it's a spectrum. Like somebody said, I said to someone, it's like an amazing growth period for us as much as it is for our children, to experience parenthood in that way. Well, we are coming to the end of our time together, but I wanted to ask you, because I love to see if you have a tip or something that people can really incorporate their lives to begin this journey of, as we were talking about, self-improvement tips to a healthy family. What would you share?
I guess what I would like people to go away with is that when we're young, we tend to sacrifice ourselves for our families, and in many times it's for the almighty dollar, right? We think we have to make a lot of money, and we don't take advantage of our superpowers. And as we get old, if we haven't taken care of our superpower of elite health, we will lose it. And then we start to just survive, and we are unable to leave the legacy of our true selves, and we even lose the money that we worked so hard to achieve. And then we're unable to help our children and our communities live their best life throughout their lives. So start when as your children are small, really taking care of yourself, being strong yourself. And that is one of the best legacies you can leave your children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you touch on a very important point that I like to just highlight. And that is the importance of seeing, listening, and valuing ourselves as individuals, and then as a collective in our families and community and so on. I know that I share with moms, what do children really need from us? They just need us to see them, to hear them, and to value and love them.
Absolutely.
And doing that for ourselves makes such a tremendous difference in these big areas like the heart and the gut and the health of our bodies. Thank you so much, Judy, for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on, and I love to know that we are part of helping you reach your goal here.
Well, thank you, Laura. I so appreciated our talk today, and it was such a great time. I enjoyed the time so much with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And please share with everyone where they can find you again, because I would love for them to visit you.
Absolutely. Go to cardiowellnessgroup.com, and in the videos, there's some really easy, healthy recipes that I make in my own kitchen.
I saw those. They look good.
So I love doing it. I love cooking healthy and sharing that with my children and grandchildren. So if you can, everyone on the podcast can share with their children and grandchildren, being in the kitchen and creating food that will strengthen the body and help the gut and also improve the mind. Please do that. cardiowellnessgroup.com.
Yes. And yes, and for you chocolate lovers, it's there too.
It is.
That's great. As you can tell, I am one. So thank you so much for joining us and for providing really self-improvement tips for a healthy family. And mamas, thank you also for joining us on this show. And I just again admonish you to remember the treasures that you are. You already have what it takes. And so breathe deeply and listen to yourselves, see yourselves, and go out and be the loving and really powerful person that you are. Because in doing so, you not only nurture yourself, but you also provide the example and really the bandwidth to be able to also parent your children in that kind of integrity. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, go out and be.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.